Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 30 of the Tait Talks podcast. Today I'm talking to a fellow comic in Chris Pucillo. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks yourself, buddy.
Pretty good. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on a shitty Sunday afternoon. So we're going to talk. You're from South Africa.
Yeah, mate. Born and bred. African as they come.
Yeah. What part of South Africa are you from?
I was born in Johannesburg, but I was only there for a matter of weeks before I moved down to my home in Durban, just south of Durban, actually, a little town called Amanzimtoti, which ironically means the water is sweet, because apparently that was like the best drinking water in that river there 500 years ago, because it is definitely not when I grew up there. It was rancid, full of plastic.
So you didn't drink it?
No, certainly not, mate. There'd be a massive storm inland, and then all the sort of subsistence farmers, they'd lose a cow here and a sheep there, and they'd all die and end up like floating down the river, being like washed out to sea.
That's sweet water.
Oh yeah, it was good stuff, mate.
Bottle that. So you moved to Australia early what was it?
2012-ish, but it's a complicated story because I was busy in the process of moving in with a partner in the UK, and then I met up with the mother of my child, who's my partner now, in South Africa. When my child was 2, that was the first time I met her. So,
okay.
Yeah. So then I came here on a working holiday visa, which I was able to get because of my Italian passport. And then I had to leave for 8 months before we got money together to apply for a spousal visa.
Wait, let's just backtrack. Right. So you're moving in with a girl in the UK, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So that was your partner then?
Yeah.
But you already had a kid previously?
That's correct. Well, so basically...
You just told you're a father and you're like, yeah, sure, okay.
Well, no, it wasn't something like that. It was because it was the girl I'm with now. We were like sort of on and off through high school and on and off through university.
Yes.
And then we were more off than on towards the end of it. And she had this opportunity to move to Australia. Yeah. And we just kind of had like one last... hurrah, yeah.
Okay, so you didn't know you were a father?
No, I did.
Okay.
She kind of contacted me like way
but she was living in Australia.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, it was kind of like, this was our last little hurrah. Yeah, you're going that way. I'm like probably never going to see you again. I'm going to just get on with my life. Yeah, that chapter's closed.
I'm not putting on a condom.
Yeah, and she was like phoning me, trying to get hold of me, and I was like, I don't really want to deal with this.
Welcome to the podcast. That's a great start. Hey, I'm talking to this bitch.
Well, it wasn't that harsh, but it was not far off.
Yeah. Okay. So then you ended up obviously meeting her again. So you were going to the UK, and then wait. So were you in the UK?
Well, so what happened was we'd finished university. So this was around, say, like January, just before the start of the new year. Mm-hmm. And because I changed majors like halfway through university, I was missing some credits to like graduate at my majors. So I'd arranged like an exchange year at another university in Cape Town. Okay. So like she was sort of setting off from Durban to go to Australia. Goodbye, never going to see you again. I went to do a semester in Cape Town, so I took a 2,000 kilometer road trip with my grandmother, actually, which was pretty awesome. She's a ledge. Yeah. And yeah, I was sort of knocking around Cape Town for one semester, which is sort of 6 months. And another girl I knew was like sort of came over, and we were going to do a road trip back, just young, 20, just living. So that was when I found out, like on the eve of leaving on that road trip.
Sweet.
So it was,
So how old were you? Early 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you study, by the way?
Philosophy and ethics.
Okay. Using those these days, or?
Not much, mate, on the rails.
No ethics?
No, not a drop of it. Yeah. Yeah, there's not much ethics where money's involved, unfortunately.
No. It's got to push that aside.
Pretty
absolutely. Much hard to make money from being ethical.
No honesty as well. Like, it's just basically an absolute... smorgasbord of desperation to shift the blame onto someone else, so you don't have to pay for the wasted time and wasted money. Because that's what everyone does, is they like undercut each other, or like they're going to be the cheapest possible so they can win a contract, and then try to narrow the parameters so that when they inevitably fail to deliver on that contract, they can try to claim it as variation. It's just like, it's disgusting.
Yep. But that's us.
Yeah,
That's
human beings.
Welcome. Yes. All right. So you've moved to Australia. All right. No, actually, sorry, we've gone too far. What was it like living in South Africa as a young man? So, like, obviously you live in Australia now. You've been here for, was it 8 years?
Yeah, 8-9 years.
So what was it like growing up in South Africa? Obviously you did university and stuff like that, but what's it like compared to Australia?
Well, we were just, even though we weren't rich, like we were incredibly privileged.
Okay.
Like we were sort of on the lower end of the middle class spectrum when my mom and dad got together, because neither of them did uni or like had any tertiary education behind them. Like my dad studied night, like he got a commerce degree, he got an MBA like at night while having 2 kids and working in a factory during the day. Like and he worked for Toyota actually for 20 odd years. So we didn't have everything that like your typical white South African coming from old money had, but we still had like a maid to clean our house. You know, we still had 2 cars. We still went out for dinner sort of, you know, once or twice a month. It was a very privileged life, very open place. Like we got the sort of tail end of the apartheid infrastructure after apartheid ended. Yeah. So I guess like the absolute rot and corruption that you see in modern South Africa today hadn't quite had time to set in. Yeah, there was still a lot of hope around. Mandela was still president, God bless him. So yeah, it was a great time. Like I had a good childhood, I'd reckon. It was just free. Like we were buying firecrackers when we were like 10, like going to the beach, blowing stuff up, like roaming. No, like you can't.
Very regimented in Australia. Very fun police orientated here.
Nanny state, mate.
You park the wrong way or something like that, and you're like, here's a fine.
Yeah.
Fuck me. It's pretty. Well, growing up in South Africa though, you do comedy now, so do you reckon that had a part of like, you know, your upbringing has catered towards your comedy now, or like your personality growing up in South Africa?
I definitely think so, man. Because while you're sort of living this comfortable middle class life, the threat is always lurking in the background, like threat of crime, threat of upheaval, just threat of change. You can imagine, like, I started school in 1995, I think, which was the first year of school after apartheid officially ended in 1994. So there was, like, I was sort of playing with little Hot Wheels on the rug. Yeah. At the foot of people who were like discussing the potential of civil war, you know, so that kind of filters down to you, and it creates that ability to live in 2 spaces, to feel that something is like offensive or it's edgy, but then it's also like part of life. So like you can just be calm with it. Like you don't have to get hysterically offended every time someone pushes the boundary. Yeah, because there's worse things that can easily happen at the snap of your fingers instead of, you know, just telling an offbeat joke or whatever. That's pretty. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and I mean my home life was a little unsettled as well. So a lot of like drinking and a lot of that sort of stuff. Look, so you kind of you got to just get on with it, you know. Yeah. Can you briefly tell? Like, I'm not 100% like the apartheid and stuff like that. What actually happened, or is that such a it would take way too long to say actually what it is. For the people who are listening at home, and myself, who are unsure of actually what the apartheid actually is. I mean, it's a big topic for a 45-minute podcast for sure. But I mean, it was just, I think the main feature of it was just segregation. Like how people, like you had, like we lived in a white area, and then like called Amanzimtoti, which had like its little micro suburbs. But then the one suburb up from us was called Isipingo, and it was an Indian area. Like only Indian people lived there. Oh, okay. And that wasn't like Indian people settling with Indian people and white people. It was like designed by the government policy who said, Indians, you live there. Blacks, you live there. Whites, you live there. You know, so like that was sort of the main feature of it. Whites, you go to this school. Blacks, you go to that school. Like there's these signs that said "Blanker alleen," which means like whites only. Like we had those sorts of features, similar to like the sort of Jim Crow segregation, but much more legislated, I think.
Okay, now just a quick one. You speak in South Africa. What's it's obviously you speak English.
Yeah, there's actually, I think, 12 official languages.
Is it Afrikaans? And
Afrikaans, English. Then there's like a litany of tribal languages, like Zulu is one, Xhosa is another. And then there are a bunch of like smaller tribes like Venda, Sesotho. There's a bunch of them. I can't even remember all of them offhand.
So you speak Afrikaans?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
Is that everyone speaks that?
No.
No?
So especially where I'm from, because the Dutch colonized the Cape, which was on the other side of the country where Cape Town is, and then the British sailed around that and colonized Durban and Natal. So where I'm from is a predominantly English-speaking place, and apartheid, sort of the government and the governing mechanisms were predominantly Afrikaans. So like even like during the apartheid era, there was God, English has deserted me. There was compulsory conscription, and even in that system, it was white people being drafted into the army, but like the English people were sort of a peg lower than the Afrikaans people.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually had like a derogatory term for them. They called them soties, which means like salty, and it was because the theory was they had 1 foot in South Africa and 1 foot in England, so their dick was hanging in the sea and it was salty. Yeah.
Creative.
Yeah, it is, I thought.
Yeah.
Not your average like lazy slur. It was like some thought put into it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Did you learn Afrikaans at school?
Yep.
Yeah.
12 years of it, man. And I have a proportion of my family that's Afrikaans.
Okay.
So yeah, my dad grew up in Pretoria, all Afrikaans. His mum was Afrikaans. His family to this day, like I go there and try to speak Afrikaans.
Yeah. Is it just dwindling now because you're in Australia? Like, how often are you going to speak it? Oh, yeah, probably your partner speaks it?
Yeah, she does. So, like, when we're at social occasions, her and her mum speak predominantly Afrikaans to one another.
Yeah.
And so we kind of joke around in Afrikaans. Like, we kind of speak a hybrid mishmash.
Yeah.
Like, throw words in here and there. There are some words in Afrikaans where there's just not an equivalent in English.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you had an awning in English, it's kind of like a boring thing. But in Afrikaans, it's an afdak, which means literally translated off roof.
Okay.
So like, we just kind of...
It's got a real... Yeah, it makes...
Yeah. Or like if you, say for example, if you went under a table from one side and came out the other side, there's no word in English to describe that.
Yeah.
But in Afrikaans, you could say the person went onder deur die table. Like, they just went... Like, it's under and through combined. Like, so...
Ah.
So
it's like that a German type of, you can literally tell a story in the word type thing.
Yeah, and even some of the animals, like a giraffe is a camel horse, and like a yeah, I don't know why or how the fuck, but
this is off topic. Is Oscar Pistorius from South Africa?
Yeah, guilty.
Okay. When that happened. You would have been over here, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, I think I was I can't even remember actually, but I think I was predominantly here. Yeah.
For the people who don't know, he was did you say disabled?
Yeah, he was a Paralympian guy.
Yeah. And he had those. They just called him Blade Runner, didn't they?
They sure did. Yeah.
But he ended up shooting his model girlfriend.
Yeah, Reva Steenkamp was her name.
And Jim Jeffries does a very, very good thing about it, that I think anyway. But was he an actual big celebrity? Because they made it out over here that he was like your fucking Lord Savior, like he was a big old deal. But I feel like he wasn't.
He was in a way, like he was the poster child for the Paralympics, really, and for sprinting. But he was kind of like
he was a madman?
Yeah.
He shot his missus, so yeah.
Well, and like before that, he was like a bit of a well-known bellend. Like,
oh, really?
He fired a gun off in a restaurant, and he fucking did a whole bunch of shenanigans. Like it was kind of well known that he had a bit of a temper, and that he was a bit this way. But it was kind of like, he is doing all this Paralympic stuff. So like,
he doesn't have legs. Come on, give him a go.
Yeah, give him a break, mate.
Yeah. Go back to like guns. They seem quite prevalent in South Africa. Are they easier to get there compared to Australia? Like, can you have concealed weapon, like have a handgun and stuff at a restaurant and stuff like that? Or is it, no, that guy just has a gun and he's a criminal?
Yes and no. I think apartheid or the government under apartheid had quite a liberal approach to guns. People can have them in their home.
Yeah.
But I think the ANC, when they took over post-apartheid, tried to crack down on it. But they just don't have the resources to really enforce anything like a first world criminal justice system.
They're not first world?
No, afraid
No.
not. Used to be.
Okay.
But even in saying that, like that's you got to take that with a pinch of salt because it was first world for white people.
Yes, true.
So it was a first world like infrastructure, but it was only available to a tiny portion of the population.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like when you came to Australia, was that different stuff? Like, were you ever into guns?
I really, really like guns. To tell you the truth,
Okay.
I'd own some now if it was easier.
Yeah.
But I just don't have
And
the time
expensive
or
too.
wherewithal to go and enter. I think you got to enter like 8 shooting competitions a year.
Is that handguns?
Yeah, just to have a pistol, and there's quite a number of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, handguns are like, you really wouldn't be able to get one. Like they would knock you back if you weren't doing that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and shown probably references, I assume, especially with handguns. I think it's like even harder to get, like even getting harder to have like rifles and stuff like that, shotguns in Australia.
Which is unfortunate because I'm really into it, man, and I'm into it almost on principle. Like I had a gun in my house was just sort of a standard. Like when we went on long road trips, my dad just like luggage, snacks, the gun. It was just like
Yeah.
part of the thing. And I've experienced one or two like incidents with gun violence there, but I'm still pro them, man. I just don't think. It's gonna make me sound like an absolute right-wing nut job. I just don't think the government should be able to tell you what you can and can't do to defend yourself, like within reason.
And that is the end of the podcast. No, that's fair. Especially coming from like a different country and stuff. Your way of life was as you said, your dad packed the snacks, blah blah blah, and a gun. Like it was just your way of life. So it probably is a bit different being over here now. And them saying no.
No, you can't even own one.
You can't have a fucking slingshot here, man.
Yeah, well, that was my childhood. Firecrackers and slingshots, like like monkeys and birds and going into the bush, like.
So throwing firecrackers at monkeys and birds is what.
Well,
that's
I
what
was
I'm getting.
oddly a bit more compassionate than that, despite my comedy. But
Yeah.
but I lived in a large share house, because my parents sort of broke up and then got divorced and then got back together and then got split up again. It was like a real roller coaster of a childhood.
Yeah.
But in one of the parts where they were split up, I was living in like a massive house. It was my grandparents, my mom and her boyfriend, her 2 kids, his 2 kids, her brother, his girlfriend, their 5 kids between them, and her younger brother. And it was just like kids there. It was just insane. A massive house.
Giant fucking thing.
Yeah. But so I had a cousin who's older than me by 9 months. We were like knocking around together. We were in Boy Scouts and we found a nest with birds' eggs, like up the tree at the beginning of our drive. So we'd climb up it every day, like check on them, make sure they were good. And the eggs hatched, and there were 2 little chicks there. So we used to go up and just watch them. Like you don't touch them as well, because if they get your scent on them, then the mum will kill them. Yeah. And we came home one day and this troop of monkeys had got up there and just ripped them to shreds and eaten them. So we were like, fuck this. Ran inside, got the pellet guns, got the catties, and from like that point on for about 3 years, a catapult, or like, what do you call them?
Slingshot,
we call them catties.
We were not allowed them here, so they're just a mythical fucking thing for us. Unless you're like Dennis the Menace and you make one from a fucking tree.
No, dude, we had like proper
wrist
ones.
rocket,
wrist rocket, and it was like on for young and old. It was us versus that troop of monkeys for like 2 years.
People.
Nah.
Fucking, how do you have eyes left?
We were in a running battle with that troop of monkeys. Like every time they came.
What type of monkeys?
They Cape Vervet monkeys in our area.
Big, small? How big are we talking?
Medium-sized dog.
Okay, what?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Jesus. So if they bit you, would not be good.
No. But they fucked up those 2 birds, and then we were just like.
Are they smart?
They are quite smart. Yeah, they get into people's kitchens and get their breads and that. Like I remember once when I was on school holidays, No, there'll be like a subtext of privilege here. But I was like in my boxes in bed at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and I heard my mate just screaming from the kitchen. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? And like I got out of bed, just ran down, all Rambo, like age 14, skinny white boy. I could do absolutely next to fuck all. But I remember just grabbing the broom from the hallway because I was like, it's something. And I ran into the kitchen, and there was this massive monkey just on our dining room table, just eating bread out of the packet. And I hit it with the broom, like, and it just shot out, wedged itself between the burglar guards and fucked off. And like that was like just par for the course.
So that was just a normal.
Yeah,
could happen if you left your door open, whatever.
Yeah,
there was a point where they could get in. You'd have a monkey in your house.
Yeah, just ripping through your like pantry.
That's crazy. What else animals were around this fucking...
We had like these little, like tiny little deer called duiker that used to roam around there, like little meerkats, that sort of thing. Yeah.
It's so weird. Like you say, that shit like really intrigues me. But then people are like, yeah, like you talk to another Australian person that lives in like actual Australia. You're not fucking like a city and stuff like that. And they'll have like a giant python in their house. They'll have a giant monitor lizard. There'll be a crocodile at their fucking the back of their house if they live near like some lake. You're like, oh yeah, we have crazy shit here as well, like big ass spiders and stuff. But like when it's an animal that you don't have in your country, that's when my like ears pick up and I'm like, oh shit, like a monkey.
Yeah. I think the difference is that those, like here you got possums and all those sorts of things, but none of them like will worm their way into your kitchen and eat your food. I think that sort of invasion or encroachment on the human element, I think, is what really intrigues people. Although I think some kids have been eaten by pythons, no?
Yeah, there's been a couple, yeah. I mean, there's a famous case of a dingo eating someone's baby. I don't know if you've ever heard that story. Which is, you know, I mean, shit happens, I guess.
Yeah.
Don't leave your kid in a tent with wild dogs around, I guess.
Yeah, or if you need to get rid of a kid, then...
feed it to a dingo.
Yeah.
A crocodile will be the way to go.
You reckon?
But, yeah, for sure. Obviously, safaris and stuff like that would be huge in South Africa for tourism in general, but did you, as a local, ever go to, is that Kruger National Park and stuff like that?
Never been to Kruger, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I've been on a couple of game drives here and there, but it's catered for the foreign market, really. A lot of it's in US dollars. A lot of it's quite expensive. Yeah. But you can definitely, it is accessible in certain parts.
But you wouldn't, obviously, as you said, it's pricey as fuck, I guess.
Yeah, it is. The only times I've been there, I've been sort of with other people. I don't think my family and I ever did anything like really like that, or actually I don't know. My dad's probably gonna like get hold of me and say, "I took you to these places, don't badmouth me." You know what I mean? I don't know.
You had a great childhood.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, that's funny. Obviously you've moved to Australia now. What were the big differences? Like, what's something that shocked you about Australia compared to South Africa?
Just the amount of rules, I guess. The way even little things are legislated. Like in South Africa, almost everything to do with the car is sort of a free-for-all. Like there are road police on the road. There's like sort of the bones of an enforcement infrastructure. But like I said, it's so under-resourced. Yeah. Like people are so poorly paid that there's a lot of bribery and corruption. Like
that's something you miss? You ever bribe people?
Yeah, man.
What would you bribe someone for?
For speeding, or like sometimes the police will just pull you over fishing. Like the last time I was there, I was in a restaurant. I had a steak with like a famous steak restaurant. Went there, had a few beers with my cousin. We drove out of the parking lot and a police car just pulled off the side of the road and followed us, almost as if they were waiting for someone. They said, "Oh, we got to take you to the station. This is a massive thing. Maybe you can help us out though, blah, blah, blah." Eventually circled around without saying it. We went to the ATM, drew out 1,000 Rand, which is $100, gave it to them, they let us go. Okay. Like they had no interest in enforcing the law. It was just they were hanging up outside an affluentish pub.
So they knew that you'd be able to afford it. Yeah.
Looking to get someone to like scoop a little bonus for the evening. And that's kind of, and you can't, like people are so desperate there. Like I was having this argument with my grandmother recently because, as you know, there's been a lot of like a round of looting there, a round of burning shops, of theft.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
I don't even know really. I've been like following it very passively, like checking in with my family. Like I haven't been following the politics of it, but there's a lot of theories around. But I just think, like I was saying to my grandmother, you know, these people have no hope. And she was saying, oh, she was very poor when she was young. Like she, for example, like won't eat porridge now at all. Because
that's all she had.
Yeah, like that's like a lot of it. Like her dad was actually in a TB hospital and died when she was, I think, young, in her teens.
Yeah.
So like it was a single mother, had 4 daughters or 5 daughters. And so just really poor, really battlers. And she was saying, like, we never did any of that. I was said, well, Gran, like, you had kind of hope, you know what I mean? You had a trajectory. You were like, there was society, like, you could go and do something and make something. But, like, now, the unemployment rate is somewhere, like, 35%. Like, there's groups of people in South Africa whose children are born into poverty, who there's literally no hope. Like, the hope has been, like, bought and sold by a corrupt government. Like, it's just, they are completely hopeless. So why would you not, like...
Yeah, fuck. Sounds like Australia might be the place to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, it's kind of awkward because my family are in, like I said, in Durban. So the recent rioting there has had something of a tribal colouring to it, because the guy who was president before the current president is a guy called Jacob Zuma. He was a Zulu, and he was like famously corrupt. But what he was actually jailed for now is contempt of court, because he didn't show up to his corruption hearing. Just was like, fuck yeah, I'm not going there.
And they sent him to jail?
Yeah, they went and arrested him and like...
Why would you do that?
Because he deserves it, but like it just... and then his children were sort of inflaming like these tribal tensions and you know, the catch cry of apartheid, even though it's like, you know, 25 years later, come on guys.
It's so weird hearing that type of stuff. Like, obviously, I'm born and bred in Australia and never had any of that type of... Like, that shit is super foreign to me. Like, you know, governments, you know, at war and this and that.
Coups and yeah.
Even employment at that. I've never had... assume the employment in Australia is like, what, 3, 4, 5% maybe? Probably lower.
4.5, I think.
Yeah.
Unemployment.
Yeah. So that's... Would you say it's like 33 or something?
Yeah.
That's pretty fucked.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's in a population of, I think, 50 million, give or take a couple mil.
Yeah.
That's 20 million people who have no jobs, and there's...
And it creates criminal stuff, doesn't it?
Oh, mate.
Because you have to. You can't, if your family's going to die, you got to steal a loaf of bread, you know? So
yeah.
It's... Yeah,
but even like people are stealing like flat screens and that. I mean, it's just the hustle, like, right? You know what I mean? Like if you've like got a family that's like 10, 15 members, and like one of you has got a job, and that one person is working as like a cleaner in a mansion somewhere. It's like, why shouldn't your family have those things? Why should...
Yeah. This is probably a different, like, is the minimum wage in South Africa like very, very low?
Terrible.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, that's the key.
People are hustling, man. People are just hustling. I don't even know how, like, being raised the way I was in like a sort of a low middle class white household. Like, I don't even know how they're surviving. But like, that's the thing about people. You know, they just were making
cockroaches, as you hate. We will survive.
Yeah, you know, a couple of toes crop up in the soup. Well, that's just survival, mate.
It's just fucking. It is what it is. So the rules in Australia is something that's kind of baffled you, how regimented, you know, you got to do this, got to do that. You can't.
Even some things as like just as rudimentary as parking lots. Go in this side, come out this side. Go fuck yourself. I'll go in where I want to go in. Like, thank you. It's like, it's very difficult to adjust to that.
We are sheep in Australia. Like, we follow rules. Like, and people always say like how laid back Australians are. It's like, we're not. Like, we're the first people, if someone goes in the wrong direction at the petrol station, someone in another car will be like, "Oi, fuckhead, that's the exit. You came in that way. Go out," you know, and you're just like, oh, God. Like, we're sticklers, I suppose you'd say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But
Condition, mate. You can't, like, you're breaking the rules. What are you talking about?
But, I mean, there's the other factors, too, of we get paid, like, absurdly well in certain jobs and shit like that. And, you know, people complain about how expensive land and housing and stuff is, but you're like, yeah, but you could afford that. Just means you just got to tighten your belt.
Yeah, if you but like I can't listen to anyone who says they can't afford to buy a house in Australia. I'm like
Yeah, it means you just got to have a different way of living. You can't have like, and I there's probably people who listen to this podcast who would be like, you don't know what you're talking about, fat man. But like, it's fucking, they're my thoughts, I guess. But we do make pretty crazy money. Like, you work at a supermarket and save up enough money to get a loan to buy a house at some point. I'm not saying you'll do it in the first fucking year, 2, 3, 4, 5.
But you could do it in the first year with Keystart. Like there's such low. It's not going to be. It's like, yeah, you can't like live on the beach and have a garden because you're a checkout girl. Like, and you think that's unfair. But like, you can get on the property market and you can save money. Like, how about you don't have kids and
don't have kids, ladies and gentlemen,
and you save your money for a couple. But it's like,
people want that way of life, though. They want to have everything get the.
But not only that,
time.
like
don't want to give up shit.
If you're complaining about it, it's I don't know. It betrays a certain sense of entitlement. Like you.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I deserve this. I should have this.
But where I'm coming from in South Africa, it's like, no, you don't deserve anything that you can't go and get.
Yeah.
Like, so if you think something should be provided for you, or like even as rudimentary as like the right to life, like if you can't defend your life, or if you can't be a part of a society that is strong enough to defend your life, then like how do you deserve it? Like, and that's an outrageous, like that's an outrageous sentiment. But I mean, it's like the way, like if
I can kill you, you don't deserve to live.
Well, it's like yeah. That's not entirely how I meant it. But you know what I mean? It's just,
yeah, I mean, life owes no one anything.
Exactly.
Realistic. At the end of the day, it's like, I always think to myself, you see certain people, and I'm probably one of them. There's probably people that look at me and think the same way, but it's like, if you were born in the fucking like wilderness, you would be dead because you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we would have eaten you by now. Like he's the dopey one that keeps on like bringing certain things to the campfire, blah blah blah, whatever it is. It's just like, no, we're sick of this guy. He's detrimental to our society, so we fucking ate him.
Or not only that, they just sit there and like complain about why they weren't getting a share of the grain when they didn't farm any of it, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Do you reckon your mentality towards that has helped you with your stand-up as well? Because like I just met you not too long ago, actually. It's been a couple of weeks, and now you're in my house. Very manipulative. But
when you go to the toilet, I'm getting straight into your underwear drawer.
That's fine. It's upstairs. But you, the hustle and stuff like that, as you talk about, you've adopted that in stand-up. Like, you work you do multiple shows a week, drive everywhere. Do you reckon that's just because you've started doing stand-up, like it's kind of exacerbated from the idea of the hustle, I guess?
Maybe a little, but to be honest with you, I've always been sort of just wafting through life, I guess, not really just passing, Just
yeah. So is it more you've found something that you actually enjoy, and now you've taken it with both hands, and you're like, I want to see how far this can go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, for me, stand-up is, I was saying to someone the other day, the first thing I've ever been like truly ambitious about.
Yep.
And that, I think, it's just, I just want to just push it. I mean, I was in a pretty rotten place like a year and a half ago, just mental health-wise. Like, you just seeing a therapist, and they were saying, like, what do you do? And I was saying, well, what are you talking about? Like, I raise a kid, we cook dinners, I pay the mortgage, I have this job. And she was like, no, but like, what are you doing to sustain yourself? Like, what do you do for yourself? And I just couldn't really think of anything. I was just being a parent and being a worker. And I was working these ludicrous long days, and I just, it's so obvious what's wrong. Like, you're like, you're depressed. Well, you're like wasting most of your life at work. You're getting home when it's dark. You're leaving home when it's dark. Like, you have no creative outlet, and you're depressed. Well, Jesus, Einstein, obviously. It's like,
So you came up with that with yourself? Like the idea to, like, oh, that's the fucking issue. I don't have a creative outlet. Or was the therapist actually saying like, no, like, What do you enjoy doing?
Well, yeah, she was pretty instrumental in it. Shout out to Heather, if anyone's looking for a good therapist. But I did some stand-up back in 2015 because when I first moved here permanently, we went up to Geraldton, and there was a great little company up there called Comedy Emporium, run by a guy called Julian Canny, and they just put out a call for volunteers, and I was on a tourist visa, so I was just bumming around really in the day because I couldn't work, so I was just spearfishing in the good, trying to teach myself how to spearfish, which was a fucking ordeal because you don't. That's a whole nother story. Like, you don't know what fish to shoot.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I'm like, I wouldn't have a fucking clue. I'd come back with a turtle.
Well, there's a spear gun, and I used to dive back into like scuba dive, but I'd never spearfish, and I thought, okay, this is cool. Let me do one of these manly things. And I went out a bunch of times, and I was like, I was like reading fish books, and like, okay, I got to, and then eventually I was like, fuck, you're gonna have to just make a decision here, pal. You're gonna have to just pick one of these things and shoot it. And nobody prepares you for what happens when you shoot an animal with a spear. Like, it goes ballistic. It turns out they don't want to die.
Yeah.
You're like, who knew?
Funny that.
So I picked the silver fish, and I was just like, well, that's the one. I shot it. It went ballistic, dude. Like, now, I don't know if you've ever spearfished, but the spear is attached to the gun by like a cord, and this thing just swam around me in circles.
I just wrapped you up.
Yeah, and
you drown and die.
Just about. Well, I had a knife because you're supposed to like stab them in the head to pull them out of their misery, but I stabbed it a couple of times. I kept missing its brain. It knocked the knife out of my hand. I was like, the one thing I know about fish is that these sons of bitches cannot live on land. So let me just drag this son of a bitch kicking and screaming onto the beach, and I'll sort it out there. So like, and I was about maybe 800 meters out from shore, and I just grabbed all the line all together and just kicked my way back, dragging this dying fish. I got to the beach, like crawled up the beach, dropped this like just about dead fish next to me, and collapsed and looked up, and there were two kids like staring at me, like I'd like collapsed next to their sandcastle that they were building. Blood everywhere. These kids just burst into tears. Like, the dad was sitting there like trying to enjoy his like 4X on the Geraldton beach, and I was like, I'm so sorry, dude, but like oh man, it was an ordeal. Took it home. It turns out it was a fish called a silver drummer, which is like a reef-eating fish. Absolutely the most horrible fish to eat you could ever buy. Okay. But I cooked that son of a bitch up, and I forced my partner to eat. I was like, I killed this thing. We are eating this damn.
Nearly killed me.
There's not enough tartar sauce in the world that could save that fish. But hey, I did it, so there you go.
Manly.
Yeah.
Manly.
Traumatized 2 youths in the process, and that was that.
Oh, well, we grow up quick, I guess. Where were we before the fish?
I can't even remember, man. Julian Canny, great guy.
Man. Oh, yeah, stand-up. Yeah, fuck.
So he put out a thing just for like volunteers to help with their show. So I just went and I was a door bitch, and I put out chairs, and I had a bit of like rapport with him and a bit of banter, and he was like, well, hey, mate, we have a writers group. It meets every Tuesday. Come down, check it out. And I did, and I ended up doing a couple of shows with them while I was living there. Like, they would just do like regional showcases. Yeah. So, but it was always just like an extra thing, like on the side, like a hobby. I had no idea. So when I left Geraldton in maybe 2016, I just kind of stopped doing it because I had no, like,
didn't know how to go about it.
Yeah, it didn't. It's even like worse than that. Like, I didn't really think of it as something that was integral to my life or anything. I just thought it was something I did there. Now I'm not doing it. Like, but you've still got bills to pay. So, put your head down and your bum up and get to work. And it turns out that's not sustainable for a human being, I guess. Yeah.
And then you went back to it after talking to the therapist.
Yeah. I got on some antidepressants for a while, which helped me no end. Like, a lot of people are really down on them, but I cannot thank that massive corporation enough for sponsoring my future shows.
Yeah. Just give them a plug on the podcast.
Yeah, that's it. No, it really helped me. Like, I had a really positive experience with antidepressants, which you don't hear very often.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
So there you go.
And now you've been back into stand-up for about a year now?
Yeah, about that.
And you've taken it very seriously, and you're fucking gigging like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, every opportunity I get. And I make a point of trying to go and do gigs where there's going to be...
fuck all people.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to treat it with the same level of care that I treat like the best night at the Comedy Lounge.
Yeah.
The best open mic night, I should say. I haven't managed to get booked there properly, but if they ever listen to this, I'll clear my schedule for you guys.
I'll take a commission from fucking getting you on. What was I going to say? It was interesting listening to, was it Brendan Lovegrove?
Yeah.
The other night when he said, like, you have to do the hardest gigs. I implore you to do the hardest gigs type thing because they do make a better comic. Which is, like, I'd thought that, but, like, him, a comedian of 27 years who's, 10-time New Zealand's top comic, him saying that stuff. I don't know, for some reason it just really reaffirmed that you have to eat a bag of dicks a lot to get anywhere with stand-up.
Yeah, man, but you hear the same stories about every top pro in America. Like Dave Chappelle dropping into a bowling alley to do 4 hours to 6 people. Like Bill Burr, like dropping in here to this open mic, or Louis C.K. dropping in there, like doing 12 minutes at a movie theater, or so just ridiculous things. Like,
it's not a quick. Well, I mean, it's like anything though. Like, you don't really hear of band members doing one little gig and then they're in the stratosphere of fucking sell out shows and stuff. It's like, no, that motherfucker had to learn how to play a guitar for multiple years before. That's one of the best things about stand-up is you don't need anything besides your fucking mouth.
And your wits. But even you think of that, take that musician example, man. Like, even gigs, like he would have done X amount of gigs, but he would have done like exponentially more like bonfires where he played for friends or things here and there. Like, you know what I mean? It's a kind of a...
That's one of the good things about music in Australia, though, is there's always background music at a lot of pubs and shit. There'll be someone crammed in the fucking the corner singing songs. Whereas, like, I've travelled a lot of places and that's not as common.
No, not even in South Africa. I don't think it was.
So live music isn't as...
Yeah, live music is a luxury.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't part of the culture. There are a lot of TVs in the pubs, the same as there are here, which is, a lot of TVs. Sport's a big part of the culture there.
Who are you guys? You guys are fucking...
Springboks, baby. Rugby.
Your rugby's
just
your
fucking
big one, isn't it?
Brutally crushed the British Lions this weekend. Go on, son.
I mean, it's a sport. I won't go into it. But cricket's good, though.
Yeah, cricket is pretty cool.
But that's not really what I want to chat about.
No.
It's just naming shit.
So, and
big
curling.
fan of Mars bars too. I'm just trying to think if there's anything. Oh, just one question. When you moved to Australia, I actually got two. When you moved to Australia, the slang, I've heard our native tongue is very hard to pick up. Did you find that?
I think there was a lot of cunt on the nose. It's every second word is cunt this, cunt that, and I'm just like, it's if you said that in South Africa, it was
really
bad news bears, mate. It just is not the done thing. Like, for all the wildness there.
Yeah, that's such a funny. That's where you pull the fucking cord and be like,
that's where you draw the line.
No.
You can oppress this whole race of people, but don't you dare call them cunts.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
There's a taboo around it, but it was tough adjusting to a lot of things in Australia. Like I remember, I had the first couple of days I was here, the first 3 days, I had a full-blown argument over the counter at a breakfast place because I ordered a bacon and egg burger, and it was just bacon and egg on a roll. And I was like, "Where's the burger? I want a bacon and egg burger." I'm like, "What part of this is a burger? Like, where's my burger? You have stolen my burger." And it's like this poor Middle Eastern dude at a takeaway on Scarborough Beach, and he's has no idea. And I'm just disgusted.
No idea that you're a crazy person.
Yeah, I'm just there thinking I have been robbed by these people. I was promised a burger. Where is my burger? And my partner eventually caught wind of this. She was talking to her friend outside, came running in there, sorted out the situation. But it's those little things that you just...
Yeah, that's funny. How hard was it for you to actually get a visa into Australia?
Man, I paid $2,500 for that spousal visa.
Yep.
The month afterwards, I think it went up to 3,600.
Yep.
I have a mate who did one a year and a half ago, paid $10,500.
Yep.
So, I mean, I caught it just before the tsunami built, I think, thankfully. We had a lot of evidence, but like just because we were in high school together, we had so much correspondence, we had so much history together, so many old photographs.
A lot of missed phone calls saying, the baby's yours.
Yeah,
like,
that's...
Fuck that.
I'm out of here. You deal with it. Yeah.
You've got options, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So that's crazy that it's gone up to... But, I mean, it kind of makes sense in a certain way, like the ability to make money. I mean, it's an absolute prick to have to pay that amount of money.
Well, yes and no, dude. But the thing is, the dimension of it, that's the problem, is that it's the same as, like, legal counsel. Like, whoever has the money has the best legal counsel and therefore has the best... Like, it's almost like you're saying only affluent people can immigrate here.
Welcome to Australia.
Yeah. It's like...
We used to do that. The White Australia policy.
Yeah.
We were like, no. You have a tan more than like whatever scale we went on. You're like, no, not coming in.
Yeah. Spend next summer in Scandinavia and then try again.
Yes. Yeah. Save up a couple more rupees and you can be on a nice beach.
Yeah, but that's where it gets a bit grubby for me. Like, I don't think
we are one of the harshest countries in the world.
Your level of wealth shouldn't determine your... But I mean, it's difficult. Like I send my child to a school, a Steiner school in Perth, and it's just like, it's like you'll have like families who are like worried about climate change, but then like both parents drive like an SUV.
Yeah,
You're just like, your life can't exist without 4 million poor people living on $1 under a day. You do realize that, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
just
like,
what you have in front of you, though, isn't it? It's easy to not think about that type of shit.
Yeah, but then like, and it's like they'll like FIFO up to like a mining company, but then they'll be like crapping on you for not cleaning out your like butter tub and putting it in there. I'm like, dude, for the love of God, like, are you serious? Can you stop? Can you just stop?
Yeah. What made you come to WA though, out of all the states?
Mining.
Okay. Yeah.
No, so like my partner, she came over here with her dad. He was recruited as a signal technician on the rails. So
okay.
So they settled here, and I settled here. Like, we both from a more tropical part of the world, so we always like musing about moving to a more tropical part of Australia, as we, with the other hand, set down deeper and deeper roots in Western Australia. So it's
the
like
mortgage gets fucking bigger and bigger. We stay here.
That's it. We've tied ourselves irrevocably to this place, but we always dream of more tropical areas. Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of fish to fucking murder here too, so you'll be right.
Yeah, I think so, man. And I mean, just the way COVID's worked out, it's like I'm infinitely
That's
grateful.
The only reason you're talking to me right now is because COVID's here.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it's
not be in this fucking...
Even stand-up, like I've made, like, again, like at the risk of blowing smoke up my own arse, like where I was even 3 or 4 months ago compared to where I am now, just from solely just pushing as hard as I can, doing as many gigs. Like the Comedy Lounge had like a writing course. They're forever putting on workshops. Like there's so many like pros here who are accessible. A lot of them are like way above you, but they'll still have time. Like if you go and chat to them, we mentioned a couple off air. I'm not going to get myself into that, but there's a lot of them that are just good, accessible people, that.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of the other places are suffering. Like you said, Melbourne, like it's a week of lockdown, 6 weeks of like easing.
Yeah.
And then all the gigs that were due to be booked then are all like, there's a backlog of bookings. So like.
And there's a bazillion fucking comics there anyway. Like they had, there's a few more sign up nights and stuff like that over there. And I've seen posts, like the same thing we have, like, the comedy forum type thing. And it's just like, thanks for the 60 people coming out tonight to get a sign-up spot. Unfortunately, I can't put everyone on, but, stay for the show and maybe next week you can get on. 60. We thought fucking 6 on Friday night at the gig we were at. It's like, it's hard chances of getting a gig.
Yeah,
and
how many names were in the box? I think there were like 5, and we were like, God damn it.
Yeah, it's fucked. I think that's our time, man. Very informative. Love you have it back on at some stage again, but thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 30, the Tait Talks podcast. Please subscribe and all that shit to Instagram, YouTube. I don't think I'm doing anything with Twitter, but yeah, just give it a like and a thumbs up. And if you do enjoy it and you want to share it, go fucking Cocoa Bananas. Share it to people like, this is fucking terrible. And then they listen to it for 5 minutes, and my analytics go up, and it's all that matters. I just want to say one thing to you, Chris. Is there anything you need to plug at all? You Instagram, Facebook, do you have a comedy page, anything?
I have Chris Pucillo comedy.
How do you spell Pucillo?
Pucillo. Currently has 2 people who like it, because I didn't do the whole spam the friends list. I was like, let me just try and get some content up there and like let it grow organically. And I've put absolutely nothing up there, so
sweet.
Don't bother.
So that was on Facey? Are you going to do like a Instagram Chris Pucillo comic?
I'm trying to get around to it, but I'm sort of middle aged at 33, so I'm like I don't understand all these newfangled things. I'm just going to pick one and try and do it well, and that's Facebook.
It's not how you're going to do it. Oh yeah, you seem to embrace everything that's fucked.
Fair enough. I'll give it a go.
Bisocial, as I would say. That's it, folks. Enjoy. Just keep being you. Go to South Africa, check it out.
Follow the rules, play the game, be happy.
Yeah. And if you're not happy, do stand-up comedy. I'm out. Thank you. Bye.